into our topic, the echo chambers and the media wars. A half truth is more dangerous than a full lie.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome to Radio Islam International. We are discussing the echo chambers. It's a Wednesday morning, just after 10 past 9. It's exactly 12 minutes past the hour of 9. In our last discussion, we were speaking about gossip, slander, backbiting, bickering, and a whole lot of disagreement, discord, disharmony, disunity. And towards the end, we asked a question to Marana if this is a minor sin or a major sin. And we mentioned if the sin has a punishment in this world and the hereafter, it is a major sin. We also did a topic of where in 6 cases backbiting is permissible. And we also came to the part where the punishments of the evil of this in this world, in the grave, in the hereafter. We mentioned people will not like you. That was one. Number two, you'll continue to worry if someone heard about you. Number three, Allah will seek your fault just like how you seek the faults of others. And number four, your iman will be destroyed. Let's welcome Maulana Zayd Ahmad Ragi. Maulana, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. We do take this opportunity of greeting all our listeners on Radio Islam, Radio Al Ansar, and those who have joined us on the Ummahat platform. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. How are you doing this morning, Maulana?
Alhamdulillah, alhamdulillah. We hope that Maulana is also doing well.
Alhamdulillah, alhamdulillah. And Jazakallah, Maulana, for always bringing us up to tune with a lovely recap of our discussions that we had thus far. And you've mentioned some of the 4 punishments that one will endure in this world for being a victim of the echo chambers, as we call it, the gossip, the slander, the backbiting, the promoting of half-truths, etc. We can continue. Yes.
Gee, we were discussing about the punishments. We mentioned the 4. We've come to the point where the punishments of the evil, further punishments of evil in this world, what are the punishments of the grave in the hereafter? We were continuing from there.
Yes, so you've mentioned some of them which are in this world. We continue with the ones that are in the grave. So what we said up until now and what you've mentioned is the punishments in this dunya, the punishments in this world. However, with regards to those punishments that are in the grave, and again, we need to appreciate and acknowledge the severity of this evil, that you are not only punished in this world, but you are also going to be punished in the grave. And may Allah Ta'ala protect me, protect you, and protect all of us. So we're having this discussion, firstly, for myself, before anyone else. And we need to wake up. We need to watch what we are listening. We need to watch what we are saying. And the punishments are extremely severe, as we've just mentioned, those in this world. And you find for this reason, some of our Salaf, they used to say, and there was one that said, I've never said a single word for the past 40 years. Subhanallah, just reflect. I've never said a single word in the past 40 years, except that I have been prepared for an answer to Allah to why I said that in this world. I mean, we can observe from here the care and the caution that our Salaf used to take. They said, I've never said a single word in the past 40 years, except that I have been prepared for an answer to Allah why I said this. So whenever we want to talk about a person, let's think, why am I saying that? And if I were to meet Allah, how would I respond to Him? Think of the words you are talking. Think of the words that you've said. And think of the times you did backbite. So, continuing, punishment in the grave. Qatada rahimahumullah, who is a great scholar, he said, the punishment of the grave is for 3 reasons. Punishment of the grave, like there are three thirds. The first third is because of namima, gossip. The second third is because of ghiba. And the third third is because of not cleansing oneself or protecting oneself when using the bathroom. Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam said, if you did not bury your people, I would make dua to Allah to allow you to hear the punishment in the grave, but because you bury your families, so Allah covered the noise of the punishment by two graves. The first grave he walked by, he told the people, the Sahaba, that these two graves are being punished, and we've mentioned this hadith previously, are being punished, they are being punished, but not for something they thought it was a major, they thought it was just a word. These words that person is being punished for is namima, and another narration of ghiba. And the second grave Rasulullah walked by, he said, this person is being punished because he never purified or protected himself when they use the bathroom. Subhanallah. That's the punishment in the grave. Then if you go on, Anas bin Malik rahimahumullah reported that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, during my ascent to the heaven, on the occasion of Mi'raj, I passed by a group of people with copper nails scratching their faces and chests. I asked, O Jibreel, who are these? And he replied, these are the ones who eat the flesh of people by backbiting and slandering them. So in the life after a person dies, said Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, when he ascended all the way to meet Allah, he said, on the way, I've seen people with copper nails. Copper nails, they are scratching themselves and their chest. And Rasulullah asked, who are these people? And Jibreel answers, these are the people that ate their brothers alive on earth, and they were insulting them and ruining their reputation and talking trash about them, scratching their faces and chest all the way until the day of Qiyamah. May Allah save us. Allahu Akbar. What a frightening punishment. Ya Allah, forgive me, forgive my children, forgive my family, my brothers and sisters in Islam, forgive the entire ummah for ignorance, and protect us always, O Allah, from committing these blunders. And as I said, Maulana, that I first addressed myself, that we are all guilty unknowingly. We backbite, we slander, and then, we said this in the beginning. As much as a person may claim that he or she is not on social media, not active on social media, but sometimes we take a lecture that we've heard, or I've given a talk somewhere, and in the talk, I might have been guilty of backbiting, slandering, gossip, rumors, bickering, half-truths, and someone posts that on social media. So in spite of me thinking that I'm not active, I'm actually active on media. May Allah forgive us. May Allah guide us as Muslims. And may we, inshallah, Maulana, that is like a recap of what we were supposed to have completed last week, which we were unable to complete.
Definitely, Maulana. Excuse me. Today we start with the topic of online, unity online. So we're doing the echo chambers online. Now we know that in today's time, hardly anyone is not online. If someone is not, but his or her talks are posted online, then those people are present online. They've involved online also, and some are involved online to a certain degree, more from an observer and a content creator. But at the same time, most of us are part of the online community. And we as Muslims ourselves are becoming more fractured and divided than ever before. And at times it does make a person feel a bit disturbed. Now, why do you think that this is the case?
Yes, ma'am. So continuing with this discussion of ours, echo chambers, and this is an aspect that we need to be extremely, extremely cautious. And as you have said, You are involved, some are involved online to a certain degree, more from an observer, and you're watching and you're listening to the ghiba, you're listening to the slander, you're listening to the bickering, or you're forwarding, you're posting. You may not be a content creator, but at the same time, most of us, unfortunately, are part of this online community. And we are becoming more, unfortunately, due to the wrong use of the social media, we are becoming more fractured, we are becoming more divided than ever before, and at times we don't even worry, we don't even feel disturbed. Now, why is this the case, as you've asked, Morana? It's a big question. I mean, on the one hand, we are living in the age of rage. You know, I call this the age of rage, especially how social media has developed. So we are living in the age of rage. Many writers in our times, social critics, have dubbed this age the age of rage. It sort of has become the hallmark of our times. You know, increased irritability, increased impatience. In fact, this is our time to shine out. This is a time for we as Muslims to shine out and expose and give exposure to the good attributes of a Muslim. If we hold firm to our deen, if we hold firm to our faith, this should be crystal clear about the believer, that the believer, you know, is built different. And we've mentioned about this last week. We've mentioned about the definition of a believer. So, as we mentioned previously, in our definition of a believer, and all that we've discussed up until now, and especially in our last program and the previous weeks under this discussion, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said that deen, iman, faith is all about patience. It's about tolerance. And so the more faith you have, the more patient in general, the more resilient, the more tolerant of frustrations and irritability you should be able to exhibit. So this is part of our rage, as we said, age of rage. So firstly, that was just as an introduction to understand the temperaments of people today. So firstly, we see the online language, Marna. And again, I'm going to repeat this regularly in the course of our discussion, that as much as a person may say that I'm not active on social media, but your posts are being posted, your posts are becoming rival, your lectures are becoming rival, and we have to be, firstly, this online language and activism, social media and online, is built different in a very negative way that rewards conflicts. Social media rewards conflicts. It rewards drama. It rewards, unfortunately, negativity. And we have to be very cognizant of that. If you were to be a content creator and you are continuously or regularly posting, and you wanted to honestly assess what happened to your character. And again, you might not post it yourself, but your followers are posting things. And you really, honestly, we need to assess what has happened to our character, how we've lost the plot or haven't lost the plot. How well am I doing? How aligned am I to the definition of a believer with my ethical framework as a Muslim? Just go into your posts or your things that have been forwarded by people. Just go into your post and hit most popular, and you might find that the more controversial stuff got more views than the other stuff. And from there, you got to be honest. And each one of us have to be honest and say, am I truly immune to this? It just does not describe you, but also prescribes what you are going to be prone to. And this becomes your brand recognition. And here I'm addressing anyone that just keeps on forwarding things or people whose talks are being forwarded or are becoming viral on the social media. As we sometimes say, this becomes your brand recognition. As we some are recognized by their language, some are recognized by their abuse, some are recognized by their vile vulgarity, opposing everyone and everything that they are not in agreement with, to an extent that we can say many are becoming jaundiced, and so on and so forth. And so we need to just be honest. So, as I've said, Maulana, that this is becoming our activism on social media, and not necessarily my personal activism, but whatever has been posted about me. For example, this that we are having this program today. This program it is already on YouTube, it is already on the social media, it is on various platforms, and whatever we say here becomes our brand recognition. And we've mentioned previously the dangers of half truths, and we've mentioned it today in our introduction as well. And we've provided examples. And one of the examples that we've provided in the past of Hadrat Uthman radiallahu ta'ala anhu's martyrdom, the harm caused in promoting half-truths regarding Hadrat Uthman radiallahu ta'ala anhu, and we're not going to go back into that. I think, Marana, it was in our second episode where we spoke about how dangerous half-truths are. And I'm going to say something now, Marana, that recently, unfortunately, an example of this is the half-truth that is currently being promoted by, unfortunately, senior people regarding the SAUF conference in Zambia relating to the interfaith. I mean, Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam said to us, 2 hungry wolves let loose on a flock of sheep. This is crazy, it's frightening. Think about this, how much damage they will do to that flock of sheep, he said. How much damage they will do to that flock of sheep. He said, a man or people's protectiveness of fame. We spoke about the brand recognition. A man or people's protectiveness of fame and money will do more damage to your deen than 2 hungry wolves let loose on a flock of sheep will do damage to that flock, ravage it, tear it apart. And so we need to know what we are prone to, because who doesn't care about money? We can even say, oh, I'm not in it for the money, but you could be in it for the fame. And if you think you are not in it for money or fame, you should second guess yourself. Sometimes people just talk about others and people just for relevance. Now, we should really second guess ourselves. The Sahaba used to second guess themselves about these things. And we should think, are we sort of superior to the Sahaba? We got to be cognizant of all this. And as we said, we have the age of rage. I would say it's one of the reasons the algorithms, such behavior and content is a second reason our nature as human beings wanting to be recognized. And then the last thing is the infighting is unfortunately part of our history. We have to qualify this. So the promotion of the half-truth that we are recently seeing, unfortunately, on the social media is exactly what we are talking about. Think about the harm that we are causing. And I have to qualify this and say this very carefully, but it's also because we as Muslims, and infighting, unfortunately, has become part and parcel of our tradition. I don't mean that in our traditions and teachings, but historically also, we were destined to have to work our way through infighting. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam says in a hadith, and a very famous hadith, and we've quoted this hadith previously, that Rasulullah said, I asked Allah for three things. He granted me two, and he did not grant me the third. And he said, I asked him,
Okay, I'm good. I
famine
think unfortunately, I think
or
we've lost connection with Mana again. Mana,
be back on.
see, we're back on. We're back on. I think that last minute we lost Mana there.
Okay. So Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam made this dua that, oh Allah, do not eradicate my ummah, do not wipe out my ummah like the epidemic, like by flood, famine or something. And he granted me that. And then I asked him to not annihilate my ummah at the hands of an external enemy. And this is a famous hadith in Muslim. And Rasulullah said, I asked, do not annihilate my ummah at the hands of an external enemy. And he said to me, even if the world were to unite against your ummah, it would never be extinct. He granted me that. Then I asked Allah to not cause their hostilities to be against each other. I asked Allah, do not let the hostilities in my ummah be against each other internally. And he did not grant me that one. Now there's two things to take note of this hadith. Firstly, that this is going to be a recurring challenge, though we need to be extra vigilant of it. There are reasons for it. I mean, really, generally speaking, Islam is the most welcoming, compassionate religion. Statistically speaking, we are the most ethnically diverse religious communities. This is like a fact, undeniable fact. So we might be extra susceptible to it's almost like families, when they get closer, there's also a little bit of more tension. So that's going to be an issue. That on the one hand, it's destined. But on the other hand, Rasulullah was asking Allah to save us from it. Rasulullah was asking Allah to spare us of it. So we have to have the same mindset of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the same mindset or heart set, that just because it is destined does not mean it has to be at all places, at all times. We need to actively hate this disunity, this discord, this bickering that causes this disunity. So we need to actively hate this. We need to be disturbed by it. We have to work against it. May Allah help us. I think that's where it all begins. Just being cognizant, being conscious of social media's reality. The fact that this is our reality, and that I guess social media has this reward, polarizing, divisive, negative content. We've even had, the whistleblowers from Facebook who was actually saying that Facebook was rewarding content that was more negative, that was more hostile. And people are more glued to their screens when you are sharing them information that is polarizing information, that is drama orientated. People will be more prone to staying glued to their screens. So we need to be cognizant of this fact. So as we've mentioned, it's destructive to our social fabric. As Muslims, it is destructive to our social fabric as Muslims. And most importantly, it is destructive of our spiritual friends. So that's the thing. Like there are different realities here. The reality of human nature, the reality of social media, the reality that most people won't sign off altogether from social media. So these realities are not worth, in my view, focusing on. So since we can't change them, the realities that we spoke of, the only thing we can change is my personal reality, my personal self-regulation, our personal reality, our self-regulation. You know, how do I make sure I'm cultivating enough fear of Allah to restrain me from the slippery slope, restrain me from getting tainted by this without even realizing it. That's the only fight. That's the only battle with engaging in right, the battle within. That's right. And that is powerful. And therefore, we spoke so much and emphasized so much about self regulating. The whole reality and purpose of our existence among one another is that there will be differences. It is part of the test. It's part of coming closer to Allah by dealing with these differences in a way that is pleasing to Allah, having that patience, having that resilience. It's the nature of human beings. Allah could have made us all exactly the same and that we get along with each other and every single one of us. But there will always be those innate differences that will cause that friction. And we should realize that our interaction and our activism on social media should not be such that it further, makes this ummah more fragmented. And that's an important thing that we need to keep in mind. And many a times, it is the promotion of the half-truths. And I've given the example of the South conference about the concept of interfaith, that it was just, people took a small portion of a 3-hour discussion and made that the primary discussion. Inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un. It is these half-truths, that the rumor and the slander that follows after that, and the bickering that follows after that, and people making up opinions of your own Muslim brothers. Where's the hadith that Rasulullah said Muslims are one structure, one body? All of that is forgotten. And that is exactly the harms of these echo chambers that we are talking about. Yes, Marana.
Ma, moving on to complacency. When are we guilty of complacency? So, for instance, there are differences that we have, and we should be patient, and we should just endure the differences that we have, and be patient with one another. But when are we guilty of complacency? So, in the sense that when should we calling out the evil actions?
Subhanallah, Marana, what a significant question. The aspect of being complacent when harm or wrongs are being committed. And where does this whole discussion lead us to? We should be patient, yes. We should should we just endure the differences that we have and be patient with one another? No, not necessarily. And we spoke in our previous discussion about the occasions when that is permissible, and we gave 6 reasons when it is permissible to, for example, talk about the harm. And when should I be calling out an evil action? And when am I guilty of complacency? Because many people today feel that if I don't call the evil out, I will be guilty of complacency. When are we meant to call something out? Observe, we are saying something and not someone. When are we meant to call something out? And observe the words. We are saying calling something out and not someone. Something, not someone. When am I meant to take a stance? Or is it that no, I'm just going to be patient, I'm just going to ignore? And when does it become blameworthy? When am I guilty of a blameworthy sense of complacency? When dealing with differences. And this is an extremely important question. And again, we're going to talk about calling the thing out, not the person. So firstly, let's keep this in mind. Unless we get off social media, or relatively off social media, and we scale back our use of this, we will not be able to assess what is necessary and what is to be ignored and walk away from. So, what I'm saying here is that because our activism on social media, people hear things, people post things, people forward things, and then I personally may not be an active person, but people will come to me and they will tell me, so and so did this, so and so said this. So, unless we go off social media or relatively off, and we scale back our use or the hearing of others reporting to us, we will not be able to assess what is necessary and what is to be ignored and walk away from. Because, that's why we're calling it, Morana, the echo chamber, right? All you hear in this echo chamber of the world that we are living in, especially the age of rage, the age of social media, all we hear is the noise, this noise or that noise, and you think it's all about that. And then you just lift your head and say, oh, wait, the world is going on. This isn't the biggest issue. So, to not get pulled into this, you need to sort of have a measured exposure or measured involvement. Lessen your exposure. I know many will say, and perhaps are saying, I'm not on social media, but all your lectures, all your talks, short clips from your talks are all posted on various platforms. So you need to take responsibility of what your contribution is on these echo chambers. That's the first part. Secondly, why are we not elevating the discourse? We need to elevate our Islamic discourse. Is our Islam only about talking of people? Isn't there something else that our discourse should have? Demonstrate for others elevated discourse. Whilst we are on social media, within our little subspace, our Muslim social media, as we call it, improve the situation as much as it can be improved. Restore some semblance of civility, some semblance of politeness, some semblance of peace, some semblance of the values of Islam. Do we only need to have discussions about people? Even if it's not taking the names, but every point is directed to someone who is easily identified. Is that the only discourse that we are going to have as Muslims and as scholars? Okay, there is going to be an element where we have to call out, as we put it, but how much should we be calling out? So once you step back, you realize, wait a minute, all I'm doing is calling out. It's like jumping from one knee to call out to another. And many of our discourses today are unfortunately only about calling out people. Abdullah ibn Mas'ud radiallahu ta'ala anhu says, and he must have gotten this from Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam. Abdullah ibn Mas'ud radiallahu ta'ala anhu must have received this, what he's mentioned, from Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam, because it's like, a statement regarding the future. Nobody knows the future but Allah. And he only disclosed a bit of the future to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, sometimes to endorse his nubuwah. And so this is called the report really to be attributed to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam himself, because it's knowledge of the unseen. He said that the day of judgment will not come, or they will pass over the people a time, meaning in the future, when their best deed among them will be at throwing blame at each other, calling each other out. It's very interesting. It's like speaking of our current days. So Abdullah ibn Mas'ud radiallahu ta'ala anhu says, and as I repeat, he must have got this from Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam, because he's talking about an event or events that will take place in the future. And he said, the day of judgment will not come, or they will pass over a people a time, meaning in the future, when their best deed among them will be at throwing blame at each other and calling each other out. So, are we, just let's take a step back. Are we actually guilty of this in our discourses? That our discourses are filled with calling people out, not calling things out, calling people out, calling each other out. It's very interesting, this statement of Abdullah ibn Mas'ud radiallahu ta'ala anhu. It's like he is speaking of our current times. So just think, what goes through my mind when I give talks, when there is discourses, and what's posted on social media. Oh, I got to call out so and so. I got to call out this person. And we really need to ask this question. Do I really need to call him out or her out? What do we need to call out exactly? Because this is a little bit, this part is a little bit controversial. I don't mean it in a dramatic way, but I mean something disputed, debated among scholars. When is it mandatory for you to speak on an evil or try to prevent an evil? There is a great debate among ulama. When is it mandatory to speak on an evil or to try to prevent an evil? When you can change it. It becomes mandatory for you to speak of an evil or to prevent an evil when you have the capacity to change it. That's basically what the hadith says. Change it with your hand. If you can't, then your tongue. If you can't, then with your heart. But what does it mean if you can't? It doesn't just mean if you physically can't. Even if you tried, it means if you did. It wouldn't work if you spoke about that evil and it won't change, or it would make things worse. And so I do believe that being reactionary and not being calculated and not having a proper objective mechanism for measured pros and cons, it becomes very detrimental to us as an ummah. You know, there is an incident of Ibn Taymiyyah and the drunkard. An example is often cited as being told by his people, this group of people that were recruited or authorized by the Sultan, by sort of the government, for enjoining good and checking morality, promoting the good to prevent the evil. And they were asked, why are you letting these people get drunk? They said, because these people, this particular group of people, when they are sober, they kill people. So we'd rather have them drunk. Now, I'm not using this as a general rule, so I don't want us to be, misrepresenting what we have said. So we need to look at the pros and cons here. And if you are just pivoting from one call out to another, calling out this person, calling out that person, calling out everyone that you have a disagreement with, from one call out to another, not sitting there thinking, is this going to make things worse? And many times, just open your eyes, just consult, stop latching onto every last controversy. Let's just reflect. Let's just open our eyes. Let's be more calculative. Let's not just, latch onto every last controversy. It does make things worse. We shed light sometimes on things that would never have gotten out. Or we are, handling it in ways that are sloppy, that are harmful. It should have been called out, but not like this, the way it's done. Sometimes, unfortunately, does more harm than good. And this is the biggest one and the most overlooked one in my humble view, that we do this at the expense of what's more important. We do this at the expense of what's more important. Focus on that which is building the good. Let's focus our discussions on building the good, not going on like a tear against everything we see as wrong or evil. We are far more, and I will repeat this, we are far more in need of building what's absent, the good, than unfair and misinformed and uninformed judgments of people's actions. And I will repeat this, Maulana, once again. We are far more in need of building what's absent, meaning the good, than the unfair, uninformed, misrepresented, half-truth judgments of people's actions. Our methodologies become ineffective. Instead of preventing and destroying the evil that's present, it just gets replaced with another evil. It's endless work, because one of the dangers of social media and the platforms that we use today is the sense that it removes that proximity we have with each other. One of the dangers of social media, and our talks are all over social media in spite of us not having the intent of by posted by our followers, etc. And one of the dangers of the social media and the platforms that we use today is the sense that it removes the proximity, the brotherhood that we have with each other. So when we do call someone out, it removes that proximity. It removes that brotherhood. It basically builds a barrier between you and the person or the subject that you are going to call out. So there's no more questioning, like there's no more, why did he do this? Why did he do that? What did he mean when he said that? What did he mean in saying that? All of that is just removed. And we just go out. It's more like, all right, I've seen a picture, I've seen something, I've been told something, I've heard something. It is enough for me to call him out. And there's no more scrutiny as there would have been before. And not only is there no more scrutiny, but when we call out someone, we no longer see the effect we are having on the person that we are calling out, to the extent that sometimes there's a tidal wave of criticism held at a single individual, and we don't see the detriment we are taking out on this certain individual. The people that are hurling this abuse don't notice the pain they are inflicting on the other person. And not only do they not notice that, but they are incentivized by the algorithm that continue such abuse. So it just becomes, even as little as sharing a new story. Like, you think of how necessary it is. It is so necessary for us to reset back to our Quran and our Sunnah. In the middle of all this fog, we have, Alhamdulillah, in our deen, an information management mechanism in the Quran. We have an information management mechanism in the Quran, right? Like when someone comes to you with some news, confirm. That doesn't even mean anything today. That means, like, if you need to confirm before you make a decision, confirm. Some stuff you don't even need to make a decision on. Just leave it alone. You are not the judge. Something needs to go through a judicial process. This is actually like a conviction. If confirmed, and you have the ability to confirm, like in a judicial process, you don't have the ability to sort of confirm. It's just a news story. How in the world do you share a news story? Reckless sharing of news of someone sharing it. the one who wrote the article, the one who created it, the video or the talk that was given. You don't even know sometimes the name, let alone their credibility about some person across the globe that you don't know either. And then when you sort of double down on this, the most blatant form of lying, as Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, beware of speculation, suspicion. It is the greatest form of lying. In another hadith, he said, it's enough for a lie, meaning enough to destroy you. And you heard this from someone to simply pass on everything you hear. That share button, it needs a pause. It really does. And I guess it's a hadith that's relevant to this, which is related to the topic of shaming. Maulana, I've talked a lot about this aspect and we've not covered everything. Inshallah, we'll continue next week when we talk about the trial by social media, inshallah. If you want to add on something, I know I don't give you an opportunity, but you are free to come in at any time, and even any comments from our audience and our listeners, please feel free.
Ma, so very important. Ma mentioned that forward button. Many times when we call out some people and say that, you know what, this has been shared by you, said, no, I just forwarded it. Just forwarding it doesn't absolve you of being not compliant with what you've sent. Remember that by you forwarding that message, you agreed to that message. That's why you're forwarding that message.
Absolutely. And even the talks that we sometimes give in our private gatherings, that talk that goes viral, we are promoting that same evil. Yes, any comments from our audience listeners?
One comment from the audience. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. 100% true what Maragi explains about social media unity. Gee, that's the comment that we did hear from the sister today. Inshallah, we'll continue again from where we stopped at complacency. Inshallah, we'll continue from the trials, and we'll continue next week, Wednesday.
Inshallah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Have you ever been to the Ahsan store? It's filled with the most incredible items you would most certainly